Okay. Can everyone hear me? Great. And Mr. Downey, as I understand it, we've verified that everybody's here that should be, and that we're ready to proceed. Is that right?
Which courtroom?
This is courtroom 3. You've let everybody in and we're ready to roll?
That's correct.
Okay, so I don't need to take roll, correct?
No.
All right. Well, good morning, everybody, and sorry for the brief delay. This is in the category of old dogs and new tricks for me, but we're finally here and ready to begin. My name is Steve Bailey. I am a 43, I've been practicing law for 43 years. I have coached various mock trial teams in the past, and I've also been the presiding judge at the state high school tournament for 3 years running. Unfortunately, I don't have a black dress like some judges, but I'm here. So to begin the trial, let me first just ask generally, is the prosecution ready to proceed?
Yes.
Is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's begin by introducing our scoring panelists, and pay attention, participants, because the next question is whether you have any reason to believe they should not be on this particular panel. So can we begin with, I've lost my notes on that. Somebody on the scoring panel, please introduce yourself.
My name is Charlotte Voe, and I'm a hearing officer with the Department of Revenue.
Thank you.
My name is Dr. Michael Thomas. I am the superintendent with Colorado Springs School District 11.
Very well, Dr. Thomas. Does anybody have any reason to believe that Ms. Vo or Dr. Thomas or me should not be the panel for this particular round? First, we'll look at the prosecution. Any objection to the panel?
No, Your Honor.
Defense, any objection to the panel?
No, Your Honor.
All right, very well. All right, and I'm looking for the oath here. I'll find it in a second. Bear with me, and I apologize. Here we go. And where's the, oh. Very well. All right. So Sorry for the delay, folks. I didn't have a pack of paper that I needed.
Your Honor, I do have a question before we begin. Is Jack also a scoring panelist or is he a timing?
Oh, Jack Kinney, are you there?
He's here, but he's on mute.
Well, I'll just tell you, Jack Kinney is another scoring panelist. Thank you, Ms. Vo. Does anybody have any reason to object to the panel based on the fact that Jack Kinney is also a scoring panelist? Prosecution,
No, Your Honor.
defense?
No, Your Honor.
Very well. Okay.
Okay, I'm Jack Kinney, and I'm representing the Rotary Club of Colorado Springs.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Kinney. All right. I'm going to first swear in the participants, lawyers, and witnesses. Please raise your right hand. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? If so, say I do.
I do.
I do.
Witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition?
I do.
I do.
Scoring panelists, please raise your right hands. Scoring panelists, do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible and in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition? If so, say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Okay, both teams have announced that they are ready to proceed to trial. Are there any pre-trial matters?
Yes, Your Honor.
And well, let's stop back here. Do the scoring panelists have a roster?
We do not have a roster.
Very well, then we'll have the team members introduce themselves. Why don't we start with that? Prosecution, please introduce yourselves to the panel.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury, my name is Alex Larkin, and I will be conducting the cross-examination of Blake Van Owens, as well as the direct examination of Kyle Kuzak. My client would now like to introduce herself.
Okay, and Mr. Larkin, if you would please, we're going to take a little bit of time to get these folks that the rosters are correct. Normally, of course, we'd be in the courtroom passing out rosters, but I want to give the scoring panelists time to make sure we're noting the various roles that will be played. So, Mr. Larkin, what will you be doing in the trial?
I will be performing the cross-examination of Blake Van Owens,
Okay,
as well as the direct examination of Kyle Kuzak.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next, counsel.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury, my name is Sana Hamad, and I will be providing the opening statement for the prosecution, as well as the cross-examination of Taylor Perkins and the direct exam of Alex Cifuentes. My client would now like to introduce themselves.
Very well. And what's your last name again, please?
Hamad.
Ahmad, thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury, my name is Royal Diaz-McCall, and I am Alex Cifuentes.
And
My co-counsel will now like to introduce themselves.
very well. And Royal, what is your last name, please?
Zias-McCall, ZEAS-MACALL.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury, my name is Natalia Quinones, and I'll be providing the closing argument for the prosecution, as well as conducting the cross-examination of Avery Becker and the direct examination of Detective Jordan Markowitz. May witness and I to introduce themselves.
Very well. Natalia, it's Quinones, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. And you're doing the cross-examination of Alex and what else?
The cross-examination of Avery Becker
Of Avery.
and the direct examination of Jordan Markowitz, as well as the closing argument.
Got it. Thank you very much. Witnesses.
Your Honor, my name is Sydney Pavetti Hinkie, and I am Detective Jordan Markowitz.
Okay. Next.
My name is Shaylee Parton, and I am Kyle Kuzak.
Thank you. Next.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury, my name is Royal Zias McCall, and I am Alex Cifuentes.
Oh, you already did. Okay, thank you. All right, defense, please.
Good morning, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, opposing counsel. My name is Daisy, and I will be conducting the direct examination of Avery Becker, the cross-examination of Jordan Markowitz, and the closing argument.
And Daisy, what's your last name?
Livingston?
Thank you. Cross-examination of Jordan and closing, correct?
And the direct examination of Avery Becker.
Got it. Thank you, Ms. Livingston. Next.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, co-counsel and opposing counsel, my name is Caitlin McCready, and I will be doing the opening statement for the defense, the direct of Taylor Perkins, and the cross of Alex Cifuentes.
And the cross of whom, I'm sorry?
Alex Cifuentes.
Alex, thank you. Next counsel, please.
Good morning, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury and opposing counsel. My name is Lily Burdick. I will be doing the direct examination of Blake Van Owen and the cross-examination of Kyle Kuzak.
Thank you. Witnesses, please.
Good afternoon. Good morning, Your Honor, opposing counsel and co-counsel and members of the jury. My name is Chase Kloss, and I am Avery Becker.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Your Honor, ladies, gentlemen of the jury, co-counsel, and opposing counsel. My name is Isabella Cunha, and I am Taylor Perkins.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor, opposing counsel, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My name is Tara Tyler, and I am Blake Van Owen.
Thank you. All right, scoring panelists, you feel like you've got the rosters square in your brains and in your notes? Anybody need any further clarification?
We're good, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I know that takes a little bit of time, but it's really going to aid in both the scoring and the presentation of the trial as we go forward. So now let me ask, are there any pretrial matters to bring to the court's attention?
Yes, Your Honor, since time constraints are a factor in today's trial, we ask that once exhibits be entered into evidence, those exhibits remain available for subsequent use of other witnesses.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Next item, that will be at the order of the court going forward.
Okay, and permission to exchange trial rosters with opposing counsel.
That's granted. Anything further?
Yes, Your Honor. And since also due to time constraints, we ask that once Your Honor accepts exhibits into evidence that we constructively publish to the jury.
Any objection to that request?
No, Your Honor.
Very well, so ordered. Anything further, Ms. Kionis?
No, Your Honor.
For the defense, any pretrial matters?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense asks that we are granted the same preliminary matters as the prosecution, as long as some others.
That will be that first request is granted, applies to both teams. What else, Ms. McCready?
We ask for permission to enter stipulated facts and evidence.
Any objection to that?
No, Your Honor.
So ordered. Anything further, Ms. McCready?
Yes. We ask for permission for witnesses to have access to evidence after admission.
I believe that was covered earlier, but any objection to that, Ms. Kionis?
No, Your Honor.
Very well, so ordered.
We ask for exhibits to not be screen shared before being entered.
Screen shared with whom, Ms. McCready?
With the court.
What's your position on that, Ms. Kionis?
Your Honor, we ask that they can be screen shared because since we are at home, the witness cannot view the document. Therefore, they will view the document over the screen to identify it and authenticate it. So we ask that it do be screen shared before admission.
Ms. McCready, what's the reason for asking it not to be screen shared in advance of its admission?
So that the jury does not see the exhibit before it has been admitted.
I will deny that motion. I think we can handle that if it is shown before admission with an instruction from the court that the jury is to disregard that piece of paper or exhibit.
Okay.
Anything further, Ms. McCready?
Yes. We ask that any time be left and saved for a rebuttal.
Any objection, Ms. Kionis?
No, Your Honor.
Very well.
We would like to verify that the jury has case material with all the exhibits.
Very well. Presiding judge does. Do the other scoring panelists, does any scoring panelist not have the case material? Hearing nothing. All right.
And finally, we ask that witnesses are directed to their case materials.
Clarify that. What do you mean?
When something is being shown that the witness can look at the material in front of them.
Ms. Kionis?
Does that refer to exhibits only?
Yes.
Ms.
Okay.
McCready?
No objections, Your Honor.
No objection. All right. So ordered. Anything further?
That is all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Very well. And do we have, would the timekeepers please identify themselves?
Good morning, Your Honor.
Who are you?
Isabella Schulte.
Thank you. And the other?
Cassidy Rude.
Thank you, Ms. Rude. All right, I believe we're ready to proceed. Prosecution, do you care to give an opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well, please proceed.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury, I'll get back at him if it's the last thing I do. These words were spoken by Avery Becker in regards to Mackenzie Brackman. Avery Becker has been charged with committing the crimes of criminal mischief, second-degree burglary, and first-degree murder. This is because Avery has been accused of breaking into Mackenzie Brackman's home with just the intention of criminal mischief and murdered him. A homicide committed during an act of criminal mischief, such as second-degree burglary, is felony murder. The prosecution will provide evidence to the jury that this case is about a teenager who was unable to control her anger after getting kicked off of a high school club, was seeking revenge, and is guilty of all of these crimes. Avery Becker got kicked off of her high school mock trial team and in return vandalized her coach's car, writing Worst Attorney Award in permanent marker. After this, Avery still wanted to get back on the team, but of course was denied by her furious coach. You will hear and see evidence of Avery saying, well, if he's still upset about his car, then he's going to be really upset when he sees what I do to his house. And I'll get back at him if it's the last thing I do. The prosecution will provide evidence that Avery Becker broke into the Mackenzie Brackman household, committing criminal mischief and eventually felony murder. Members of the jury, the prosecution will call 3 witnesses to the stand. First, we will call certified crime scene reconstruction investigator Kyle Kuzak to the stand, who will explain the preparation, evidence, and events that took place in the Brackman household in further detail. We will then call Alex Cifuentes to the stand, a classmate and teammate to the defendant. Alex will testify against her classmate and provide reasoning as to why she believes her classmate is guilty. Lastly, we will call homicide detective Jordan Markowitz, who will explain the evidence they gathered at the scene and will provide a reasonable explanation as to what happened. Members of the jury, the defense will call Blake Van Owen, a professor and private investigator, to the stand, someone who believes they are a check of power to the police, and will explain why they believe Avery Becker was not at the Brackman household. The defense will also call Avery Becker and Taylor Perkins to the stand, 2 best friends who weren't even with each other the entire night of the murder, and will try to testify that Avery is innocent, was never at the home, and will even try to pin the murder on someone else with little to no evidence. The prosecution will provide evidence to the jury as to why Avery Becker is responsible for the murder of Mackenzie Brackman. At the conclusion of this case, we would ask of you to find the defendant guilty beyond reasonable doubt and use the prosecution as proof. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ahmad. Defense, opening statement.
Your Honor, before I begin, I would like to make note that the defendant's gender is a male, so we use pronouns he, him. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Good morning. A tragic event has taken place. On March 6, 2020, an intruder wearing blue latex gloves and a Devil's Halloween mask entered the home of Mackenzie Brackman. Later in the day, 911 received a call from a concerned citizen. When paramedics arrived, they found him face down in a pool of his own blood with a knife in the back near open front door of his home. Mr. Brackman was dead. The defendant, the star of the school's mock trial team, who had an up and down relationship with Mr. Brackman, is falsely accused of murder. As ridiculous as it may seem that an amazing mock trial coach can be murdered, nothing is more absurd than the wild goose chase the prosecution is going to try and lead you on today. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, co-counsel and opposing counsel, my name is Caitlin, and on behalf of my team, we are representing the defendant, Avery Becker. Today, the wild goose chase ends. Avery Becker and Mackenzie Brackman had an up and down relationship. They both loved mock trial, they both loved winning, but they disagreed and argued constantly. This was no hidden secret on the team. In fact, their disagreements led to Avery being demoted to B team or sub-varsity. This was devastating to Avery. So what did Avery do? Something not so smart. Avery decided to pull a prank on Mr. Brackman. Avery took an expo marker to Mr. Brackman's car and wrote all over it. After Avery wrote on the car, he realized he made a regrettable mistake. He accidentally mixed up a permanent Sharpie marker and an erasable expo marker. The prank had gone wrong. Mr. Brackman had no other choice but to remove Avery from the team. Avery was devastated, upset, angry, and said some things in the heat of the moment. But as kids realize down the road, there are consequences to their actions. Avery felt remorse. Unfortunately, before Avery could apologize to his beloved coach, Mr. Brackman was found dead, but not by the hands of Avery Becker. Avery Becker, a high school student and former mock trial team superstar, sits before you with his future in your hands. Mr. Becker is facing charges of first-degree murder and second-degree burglary of a dwelling. The burden of proof is on the prosecution. They must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Avery Becker committed these crimes. For you, the jury, to convict, there must be no doubt in your mind that Avery Becker entered Mackenzie Brackman's home and stabbed him in the back. Today, the defense will present facts and evidence that proves Avery Becker did not commit these crimes. We will do this by bringing forth 3 witnesses. The first witness is Blake Van Owen. Professor Van Owen can provide testimony on how the prosecution has not found complete evidence and they're just pointing fingers without a conclusion. The second witness is Taylor Perkins, the former team member who was with Avery the same day as this tragic event, can testify to the whereabouts. And finally, you will hear from Mr. Becker himself. Avery Becker will testify that he and Mr. Brackman had their ups and downs, and yes, Mr. Becker did pull a juvenile prank, but was never on Mr. Brackman's property, so he could not have done this. The prosecution will lead you down a wild goose chase. They will bring forth evidence and witnesses who will not be able to prove Avery Becker entered Mackenzie Brackman's home, pulled a knife, and stabbed him in the back, causing death. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today the wild goose chase stops. After all the facts and evidence have been presented, you will have no doubt in your mind that Avery Becker is innocent and acquitted of all these charges. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCready. Is the prosecution ready to call its first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution calls Kyle Kuzak to the stand.
Mr. Kuzak, you're there? Please proceed.
Please state your name, spelling the last for the record.
Kyle Kuzak, K-U-Z-A-K.
And what do you do for a living, Ms. Kuzak?
I am a Colorado Bureau of Investigation Certified Crime Scene Reconstruction Investigator, or a CSR for short.
And how long have you been a crime scene reconstruction investigator?
For 19 years.
What does the job of a crime scene reconstruction investigator entail?
I investigate complex crimes, including home invasions, burglaries, and other property crimes, domestic violence, homicides, and robberies.
And where do you currently work?
I work with the city of Denver and the Denver Police Department, but as a civilian employee and not a police officer.
And how long have you worked with the City of Denver Police Department?
I have worked with them for the last 3 years.
Your Honor, under Rule 702, we ask that this witness be accepted as an expert witness in the field of crime scene reconstruction, as she has shown expertise, knowledge, and training in this field.
Ms. Burdick, your response.
No objections, Your Honor.
Very well. Ms. Kuzak will be admitted as an expert in the fields so stated.
Thank you, Your Honor. Did you work on the crime scene for this case, Ms. Kuzak?
Yes, I did after it was processed by other members of the crime lab.
Then what did you do for the case?
I reviewed all the police reports, the photos, and the ring security videos.
Did the evidence at the scene show anything unusual to other cases?
No, it did not.
And getting to the evidence, what can you tell the jury happened at the scene?
The photos showed a clear path of small blood droplets leading from the kitchen to the front door.
Was there anything else that was uncommon when you were at the scene?
I noticed that there were scuff marks on the kitchen floor near the back door, and there was a chef's knife missing from the knife block.
Your Honor, I request permission for the witness to view what has been pre-marked for identification as exhibit number 18.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Very well. Please show the witness.
I now show you what has been pre-marked for identification as exhibit number 18. Would you please identify it?
This is a photo of the scuff marks that I found near the back door.
And have you seen this document before, and where?
I have. I saw it when I was reviewing all the evidence for the case.
And is this document something that you use to base your expert opinion on?
It is.
Is it true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
It is.
Your Honor, at this time, I move for the admittance of exhibit number 18 as its authenticity has been stipulated to.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
It will be admitted.
Your Honor, I ask you constructively publish exhibit number 18 to the jurors as it has been marked in the case material on page 78.
Very well. And you won't need to ask that because I think we covered that in the pretrial motions.
Okay, thank you, Your
Once
Honor.
it's admitted, have at it.
What do these marks indicate to you, Ms. Kuzak?
The marks indicate that there was a struggle in the kitchen near the back door.
And who is this struggle between?
It was between the victim, Brackman, and the intruder.
Was there any way that Brackman could have noticed the intruder?
He would have been alerted to the intruder through the ring security system.
And would the ring security system have alerted Mr. Brackman to where the intruder was in the home?
He would have heard the back door open.
After examining the crime scene, were you able to form an expert opinion on what happened?
I was.
And in your expert opinion, what does the scene show happened?
Brackman was sitting at his table when there was an intruder, which he was alerted to. He grabbed a knife in self-defense, but a conflict occurred for the knife, leading to Brackman being stabbed in the back of the shoulder, and he bled out at the front door.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Very well. Cross-examination, Ms. Burdick.
Hello, Ms. Kuzak. So, Ms. Kuzak, how many suspects did you investigate?
I investigated Avery Becker.
All right. So let's talk about your reconstruction. You believe that this was a burglary gone wrong, correct?
Correct.
And you believe that the victim and the intruder fought over the knife?
Yes, I do believe they fought over the knife.
And you are aware that the autopsy report does not show any defensive wounds on Mr. Brackman?
Can you please repeat that?
And you are aware that the autopsy report does not show any defensive wounds on Mackenzie Brackman?
Can you please restate?
Yes. Ms. Kuzak, yes or no, are you aware that the autopsy report on Mackenzie Brackman does not show any defensive wounds?
The only wound it shows is the stab wound.
All right, thank you. You arrived after the scene was processed, yes?
I did.
So some of the evidence that you used in your reconstruction, you did not see it in person, correct?
Well, not all the evidence, but I did see the photos from the scene.
All right. And the scuff marks that you saw, you believe that these indicated a struggle, correct?
Yes, it is the most likely thing that could have happened.
But you cannot carbon date these scuff marks to determine when they occurred?
No, I can't.
All right, and moving on, let's talk about the ring videos. You viewed them in your reconstruction, yes?
I did.
And you claim that the person in these videos matches the build of Mr. Becker?
Yes, it does.
Do you have any fingerprints that match Mr. Becker?
No, in the videos he was wearing gloves and fingerprints are not left on every surface.
All right. And do you have any video or photo evidence of Mr. Becker's face behind that mask?
No.
All right. So the only proof that you have that Avery Becker is the intruder that entered Mackenzie Brackman's home is a potentially matching build, correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Very well. Redirect, Mr. Larkin.
A brief one, Your Honor.
Proceed.
Ms. Cusack, what was clear about a struggle?
It was clear that the struggle happens in the kitchen near the back door, and that Brackman had been stabbed with the same knife he brought in.
And why would you only investigate Avery Becker?
Because he is the most likely suspect.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further redirect questions.
Very well. And Ms. Burdick, I'll ask you this, but I'd like all participants, lawyers, to keep this in mind going forward. If you want a recross, ask for it before I excuse the witness. Do you have any recross for this witness?
No, Your Honor, and thank you.
Very well. Ms. Burdick, may this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Larkin?
Yes, Your Honor.
Very well. You may step down, so to speak, virtually. Next witness for the prosecution, please.
Your Honor, the prosecution calls Alex Cifuentes to the stand.
Very well. You
Please.
there?
Oh.
Alex, are you there? Please identify.
Yes, Your Honor.
There you go. Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
Please state your full name, spelling the last for the record.
Alex Cifuentes, Sifuentes.
And where do you go to school?
I'm a student at CHS, or Colorado High School.
And how long have you attended Colorado High School?
4 years now. I'm a senior, and I'm so glad it's my last year.
Do you do anything at CHS besides your academics?
I used to. I was in mock trial, but unfortunately, our coach was murdered.
Can you explain what mock trial is?
Yeah, mock trial is a simulated court. So, well, if we were in person, we'd be in an actual courtroom and with an actual presiding judge as one of our scoring judges, which is so cool. And we would have 3 scoring panelists, sometimes 2, but typically 3. And we would just get our case from the Colorado Bar Association, and we would put it on as we were assigned our roles.
And how long have you been a part of mock trial?
3 years. I would have done it this year, but once again, our coach was murdered.
And what drove you to join mock trial?
Funnily enough, it was Avery who told me about it as a freshman, and I was like, all right, let's join.
Can you point Avery Becker out in court today?
Yes, Avery Becker has, I believe, ginger hair.
Okay. Your Honor, let the record show that the defendant has been identified.
The record will so reflect.
What is your relationship with Avery Becker?
I would say that we were really good friends.
Let's talk about the day that Mr. Brackman's car was vandalized. Do you recall where you were at the time?
I do. I was coming out of a mock trial practice, and I just could not believe what I saw written across Mr. Brackman's sweet vintage 1986 Porsche 911.
And have you had any contact with Avery Becker outside of mock trial?
We have mostly to talk about trial and stuff, but there was one time with Mr. Brackman's car, it was afterwards.
Can you explain what Avery said?
What happened was that Avery asked me to let him back on the team, and I was glad to do it. And when I did, Mr. Brackman said there was no way.
And did Avery ever contact you after Mr. Brackman said no way?
Yeah, after Mr. Brackman said no way, I told Avery that unfortunately he had not been let back on the team. And well, Avery went off and said, if you don't like what I do to his house, or if you don't like what I do to his car, just wait till you see what I do to his house.
Let's talk about the night of the murder. How did you find out that your coach was dead?
I was contacted by police detectives.
Okay. And outside of that night, did you talk to any police detectives?
I talked to Detective Jordan Markowitz.
Okay. Your Honor, I request permission for the witness to view what has been pre-marked for identification as Exhibit 14.
Very well. Permission granted.
I now show what has been pre-marked for identification as Exhibit 14. Have you seen these pictures before, Alex?
I have.
Where have you seen them?
Oh, these were the screenshots that I sent Detective Jordan Markowitz on my phone.
Okay. And is it true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, at this time, I move for the admission of Exhibit 14. Its authenticity has been stipulated and its accuracy shown.
Ms. McCready, any objection?
No, Your Honor.
The exhibit submitted.
Your Honor, permission to publish to the jury?
Permission granted.
Alex, can you tell me what's happening in these documents?
Yeah. So the first part was Avery asking me to let him back on the team. And then further towards the bottom, it was where Brackman would not let him back on the team.
Okay. And were you ever contacted after the interview?
I was by a private investigator.
Did you talk to this private investigator?
No, after her persistence, she made it blatantly obvious that she was just trying to manipulate my words in order to say that I lied about those texts, and I would never do such a thing.
And one last question. In your statement, why do you suggest that Avery Becker could not be trusted?
Well, because in mock trial, we have to practice over and over and over again in order to do something, in order to put on a wonderful simulation. But if Avery can go up there, make something up on the fly, and win awards for it, that's very unnerving, to say the least.
No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Cross-examination, Ms. McCready.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You stated you and Avery Becker were friends, right?
I would like to think of us as such. I mean, being teammates for 3 years and all, it's kind of hard not to be.
And you did not report the messages when you received them, correct?
I didn't report those messages because I couldn't find Coach Brackman.
Did you bring your phone into your interview with Detective Markowitz?
No, after we were in a rush, well, my dad and we were in a rush to get there, and I just left it charging because that phone had been completely on the fritz. It was just dying at the worst moments, and I completely forgot about it on the charging port.
And you didn't send the screenshots of the text messages until the next day, correct?
Yeah, we were out and about running errands and doing a whole bunch of other things. I completely insisted to my dad, we can just stop home and I can send those screenshots right away. But you know how stubborn parents can be.
Mm-hmm. Would you agree that's a long time to wait, especially if you were supposed to send them as soon as you got home?
Well, I did send them as soon as I got home, but as I stated earlier, I was out running errands.
Mm-hmm. But you said that Markowitz told you to send them as soon as you got home, correct?
Correct, and I didn't get home until the next day because my parents and I were out and about running errands. I had no choice as to whether or not I could go home.
So you did not follow the instructions of the detective?
I followed the instructions. The time I got home was late. I'm sorry, I've said this 3 times.
Let's move on. You were at the table with Taylor when Avery stormed off to the bathroom, correct?
I was.
And was their phone at the table?
I don't really recall whether or not there was a phone at the table.
You previously mentioned that when the police called you, and so I quote you, didn't want to rat Avery out, especially about the text messages, correct?
I didn't want to rat Avery out about anything because I didn't have any reason to suspect Avery, but I wasn't going to lie either.
And you did not have the phone anymore because you traded it in.
Yeah, it was on the fritz, and I don't keep tabs on where my phone is after it was traded.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Very well. Ms. McCready? Redirect?
Yes, Your Honor, a brief one.
Thank you. Proceed.
After the interview with Jordan Markowitz, you offered to take your phone to show him the screenshots. Is that true?
I did.
And did Markowitz ask you to do that?
No, she did not.
Okay, she just said that the screenshots would be fine.
Yes, she did.
Okay, no further questions, Your Honor.
Very well. Ms. Ahmad, may this witness be excused from your perspective?
Yes, Your Honor.
And Ms. McCready?
She can be excused.
You may step down. Prosecution, next witness.
Prosecution calls Jordan Markowitz to the stand.
Very well. And Dr. Markowitz, could you please identify yourself just so we can see who's who?
Your Honor, it's Detective.
Detective, thank you. Please
In Your
proceed.
Honor, before I begin, may I please inquire to my timekeeper of how much time is left?
14 minutes and 36 seconds.
I have 14 minutes and 29 seconds.
Gives us a pretty good range. Please proceed.
Please state your name, spelling your last for the record.
Detective Jordan Markowitz, Markowitz.
And let's begin with talking about your work experience. What is your current occupation?
I am a homicide detective for the Denver Police Department.
And how long have you been a detective?
Well, I started with the police department about 13 years ago, and I've been a detective for about 7 years now.
Do you have any outside education?
I do. I have a certificate in cell phone technology and forensic data recovery from the American Academy of Law Enforcement.
And how often do you use this training?
I use it so many times. I've downloaded the contents from hundreds of cell phones. I use cell tower data on a regular basis, and I have obtained and interpreted call tower data in over 50 cases.
Your Honor, I ask that this witness be accepted by the court as an expert in the fields of cell phone technology, forensic data recovery, and police investigation practices, for she has shown extensive knowledge, skill, experience, and training pursuant to Rule 702.
Ms. Livingston,
No objection, Your Honor.
witness will be so admitted in the areas of cell phone technology, data,
Forensic data recovery.
forensic data recovery, and police practices. Please proceed.
Let's talk about your part in today's case. How did you come to investigate the death of Mackenzie Brackman?
I was dispatched the day of his death to whenever his body was found.
Did you visit the scene of the murder?
I did.
And what did you see when you arrived?
When I first arrived, the front door was open and the victim was face down on the floor just inside of the home in a pool of blood. I also noticed that the residence did have a Ring doorbell.
Your Honor, permission for the witness to view what has been pre-marked as Exhibit 3.
Very well.
I now show you what has been pre-marked as Exhibit 3. Will you please identify this document?
This is a picture of Mackenzie Brackman's body coming from behind, where you can clearly see the stab wound and the pool of blood.
And have you seen this document before?
I have.
And where?
My forensic team took it the day of the crime scene.
Is it true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
It is.
Your Honor, I move for the admittance of Exhibit 3 into evidence.
Any objection, Ms. Livingston?
No objection, Your Honor.
It will be admitted.
Permission to publish to the jury?
Granted.
And Detective Markowitz, what else did you notice about the scene when you arrived?
There was a large knife that was just past the victim's body. The victim's shirt was soaked with blood in the upper left shoulder area, and it was very obvious that the victim had been stabbed.
Your Honor, permission for the witness to view what has been pre-marked as Exhibit 5.
Granted.
I now show you what has been pre-marked as Exhibit 5. Will you please identify this document?
This is the photo of the knife that you could see right past Brackman's body.
And have you seen this document before?
I have.
Where?
It's another one of the photos that my forensic team took at the crime scene.
Is it true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
It is.
Your Honor, I move for the admittance of Exhibit 5 into evidence.
Any objection, Ms. Livingston?
No objection, Your Honor.
It will be admitted.
Okay, and Detective Markowitz, did you only see the inside of the residence?
No, I did go outside to look around the outside of the house.
And did you find anything?
I found 2 more Ring cameras. One was on the south side of the home facing the backyard, and then another one was facing the back door. And then I also saw that the back gate was unlatched and the back door was open.
And what did you do then?
I then went into the house through the back door.
Did you notice anything odd about the inside of the house?
The house was a bit messy. I can't tell if that was the original state of the house. I also observed a partially open kitchen drawer with some knives, as well as an empty slot and a knife block.
And what else did you notice?
There was a broken plate next to some tables and chairs. One of the chairs was knocked over, probably a result of a struggle.
And to your observation, did anything seem missing in the house?
Nothing I could tell. All the expensive and high theft items were left untouched.
Okay, and let's move on and talk about the Ring doorbell camera. Did you ever look into the Ring doorbell at Mackenzie Brackman's home?
I did. When I downloaded the contents of Mackenzie Brackman's phone, I was then able to access the contents of the Ring doorbell.
Did the Ring by chance pick up anything relating to the death of Mackenzie Brackman?
They did.
Your Honor, permission for the witness to view what has been pre-marked as Exhibit 10, 11, 12, and 13.
Granted.
I now show you what has been pre-marked as Exhibit 10, 11, 12, and 13. Will you please identify them?
These are the Ring videos that I was able to download from Mackenzie Brackman's cell phone.
And have you seen these videos before?
I have.
Where?
From the downloads of Mackenzie Brackman's cell phone.
And are they true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
They are.
Your Honor, I move for the admittance of Exhibits 10, 11, 12, and 13 into evidence.
Ms. Livingston?
No objection, Your Honor.
They are admitted.
Okay, and let's move on and talk about Avery Becker. What led you to suspect Avery Becker?
When I downloaded the contents of Brackman's cell phone, I found many texts and emails relating to mock trial. I seemed doubtful that his death had anything to do with it, but it ended up giving me the biggest break in the case.
And what did you find out?
I spoke with a mock trial student named Alex Cifuentes, and I learned about a plan of some sort that Avery Becker had to trash the victim's house.
And is there proof of this?
There were text messages between these students.
Did you see these text messages?
I did.
Could you please refer to Exhibit 14?
Yes.
Are these an accurate representation of the text messages you saw?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and did you ever speak with Avery Becker?
I did arrange for an interview, but right before it was supposed to happen, her parents hired a lawyer, and after that, all proceedings had to go through the lawyer.
Okay, and did you ever obtain Avery Becker's cell phone?
I did not. The lawyer informed me that Avery Becker had lost the phone on the 5th of March and no longer had it. The lawyer did provide me with the phone number, so I obtained a warrant to obtain account records and cell tower records from Becker's service provider.
And what did you receive from the service provider?
What I received are call detail records, or as I call them, CDRs.
And what are CDRs?
A cell phone is constantly reaching out to find cell towers it can communicate with, even when the phone isn't in use. So if you could access all of the cell towers in an area, you could very accurately determine where somebody is, even if their phone's in their back pocket.
And what did the CDRs from Avery Becker's phone say?
Well, in this case, they said that another cell phone was sending several texts and placing many calls to Becker's cell phone leading up to the time that Brackman was murdered, later confirmed to be from another mock trial student of the name of Taylor Perkins.
And do you have that information here in court today?
I do.
Your Honor, permission for the witness to view what has been pre-marked as Exhibit 16?
Granted.
I now show you what has been pre-marked as Exhibit 16. Can you please identify it?
This is the call detail record.
And where have you seen this document before?
This is the document that I was able to create off of the records I received.
And where did you get this document from?
From the service provider.
And is it true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
It is.
Your Honor, I move for the admittance of Exhibit 16 into evidence.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
It will be admitted.
And Detective Markowitz, what do those black dots indicate?
So at the top of the page, that indicates Avery Becker's house. And then at the bottom, the other black dot represents Mackenzie Brackman's home.
And excuse me, Ms. Kionis, for the benefit of the jury, would you please put that map up again as the witness is describing the black dots?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, please proceed and maybe back up so we understand what's on this exhibit.
So could you please identify what these black dots and words mean?
So at the top of the page, the first black dot is Avery Becker's home. That is clearly listed. And then at the bottom, another black dot is the house of Mackenzie Brackman.
And what does the dotted blue line represent?
The line represents the most likely traveled path from Avery Becker's house to Brackman's house in order to commit the crimes.
Okay, thank you, Detective Markowitz.
Thank you.
And Detective Markowitz, what is your final conclusion in today's case?
After looking at all of the evidence that was collected, it is absolutely clear that Avery Becker went to Mackenzie Brackman's house on March 6th, 2020, with the intent to break in and vandalize the house in retaliation for Becker being kicked off the mock trial team. Brackman was home and alerted to Becker's efforts to get inside by the video security system. Brackman armed himself with a knife before confronting an unknown intruder, and Becker somehow got the knife and ended up fatally stabbing him.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kionis. Ms. Livingston?
Good morning, Detective. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Not too bad. Let's get right into it. So you believe that this was a burglary gone wrong, correct?
It was a possibility.
But no expensive items were found missing?
There wasn't any, no.
And none were broken?
Except for the plate, no.
Yes, but you believe that this occurred in an altercation?
That's true, yes.
But the autopsy report has no mention of defensive wounds?
No, there isn't.
Objection, Your Honor. It seems facts, not in evidence.
I can move on, Your Honor.
Very well.
You have viewed the 4 Ring video doorbells, correct?
That is correct.
Did you identify the person in Exhibit 10?
Unfortunately, I was not able to because of the mask and gloves, and the intruder was wearing baggy clothes, but I was able to determine the height and build, which is the same as Avery Becker.
Do you have any fingerprints that this matches Mr. Becker?
No, the intruder was wearing gloves, so.
Do you have any video or picture proof that there was a face behind the mask?
Well, I mean, there's always a face behind the mask, so in the videos, that's all I have.
Of a specific face behind the mask?
No, but the height and build.
So the only thing you know about this figure is that the build is similar, nothing else?
No, I do not know anything else specifically.
Now let's talk about how you use cell towers in this case. You use cell phone tower data to locate Avery Becker's phone, correct?
That is correct.
You were made aware that their phone was missing, correct?
That is what I was told by her lawyer, his lawyer.
You only pulled cell phone tower data from a specific time and specific area, correct?
I pulled the data from the day of Breckman's death around Avery Becker's house and his house, so that way I'd be able to see where it was.
Was that a yes or a no?
That's a yes.
Are you aware that the Fry Shack is close to one of those cell towers you access data from?
Yes.
Now let's speak about the text messages involved in this case. You spoke to Alex Fuentes, correct?
That is correct.
And you were told about these text messages?
I was.
Did Alex Fuentes have their phone with them when they were interviewed?
No, they didn't. It was a bit odd, but they explained it to me, so it was okay at the time.
So you allowed them to send screenshots at a later date?
Well, I did say to send them to me as soon as they got home.
Is that a yes or a no?
That's a yes.
But you didn't ask for access to the phone, only these screenshots?
No, Alex Fuentes was a good kid, so I just decided to let him off the hook.
You were certified in cell phone data recovery, correct?
That's correct.
Detective Markowitz, your training was only 3 days, correct?
That is correct, but it was a very good training course, and I've worked in many cases since then, furthering my expertise in it.
You previously testified that you've worked with many cell phones, correct?
Correct.
So then you've worked with many different cell phone brands?
Yes.
You are aware that the colors of sent messages vary based on the brand of phone they are sent to, correct?
That is true.
You are aware that this cannot be modified, yes?
I am aware, yes.
Objection, Your Honor, unfair extrapolation.
Can you
Response?
explain what you mean within your objection?
Well,
Your Honor,
please address
any-
the court. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Kionis.
Your Honor, any outside information outside of the case material is considered unfair extrapolation and not permitted by rules of mock trial.
Ms. Livingston?
This is information that has to do with the text messages that were used within the investigation of Detective Markowitz.
Ms. Kionis?
Your Honor, any outside information pursuing to the colors of the text messages and use of the phone and system is considered outside of the case material.
And Ms. Kionis, as I understand, the rule here is there are two things. One is that the information is not inside the text, the case material, and the other is that the information is material. How is this information material? How does it
Your-
impact the veracity of the position taken by the opposing side?
These text messages, due to the system of the phone, that is outside of the case materials and all information within the case, therefore cannot be used.
All right, and Ms. Livingston, one more shot. How do you feel? Please describe how and to what extent this is or is not in the case material.
A phone brand is within the testimony of my client, Avery Becker, and the texts are within evidence, meaning that it is in case material. So Avery Becker did testify to the brand of the phone as well.
All right. Good objection, Ms. Kionis. For the purpose of mock trial, I'm going to overrule the objection. The exhibit's already been admitted, and so the colors and the like are there. And as I understand it, the brand of the phone has been testified. The objection overruled. Please proceed.
I'll ask again, Detective Markowitz. You are aware that this cannot be modified, correct?
That is correct, but there is different circumstances in which the colors can change.
So you say yes, that this cannot be modified?
Not purposefully, but it does have to do with the service.
You are aware that an iPhone were to message another iPhone, the scent would be blue?
It would be blue, but sometimes it can also turn green if the user does not have good cell phone service, so it will send at a later time using an SMS.
You are aware that Alex Fuentes has an iPhone, correct?
That is correct.
You are aware that Avery Becker has an iPhone?
Yes.
So Alex's sent message to Avery Becker would be blue, yes?
I mean, if his service would have been fine, but I'm not for sure if that was the case.
Is that a yes or a no?
It's an I'm not sure.
Permission to screen share Exhibit 14, which has previously been entered, Your Honor.
Granted.
Co-counsel, will you please screen share for me? Detective Markowitz, please bring your attention to the second message. What color is the second message?
It is green, and just because it is the second message does not change the service that Alex Fuentes had at the time.
You just testified that an iPhone messages would be blue, correct?
I also testified that if their service was not good, the provider would use an SMS making the messages green.
Is that a yes or a no to my question, Detective?
That's a yes.
With the messages being green, you can stop screen sharing, co-counsel. With the messages being green, the messages did not come from Avery Becker's phone. Thank you. No further questions.
Redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Detective Markowitz, why did you accept these screenshots?
Because Alex Fuentes was very trustworthy. They gave me trustworthy facts, and they were very honest with everything, so I was able to accept them.
And are the text messages always going to be blue?
Not always.
And why is that?
Because sometimes whenever you're using an iPhone, you could have a patch of bad service, and it will cause the text messages to send through an SMS, turning the messages green, and it would not be blue.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
All right. Ms. Livingston, may this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Kionis?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution rests.
Very well. Very well. Step down and prosecution rests. Defense, please call your first witness.
Defense calls Avery Becker to the stand.
Mr. Becker, would you wave to the camera, please?
Hello.
Please proceed.
Please state your full name and spell the last for the record.
Avery Becker, Becker.
Why are you here today, Mr. Becker?
Well, I'm here today because I'm being wrongfully accused of murdering my beloved coach, Mr. Brackman.
How did you know Mr. Brackman?
Well, I knew Mr. Brackman from mock trial and school in general. He was a pretty good coach, and while we had our differences here and there, I still enjoyed his presence, and he got me out of the house.
Now, let's speak more about your relationship with Mr. Brackman. Were you close with Mr. Brackman?
I mean, obviously, he was my mock trial coach and just a school teacher in general. We spent time every single day together after school.
Did you have any issues with Mr. Brackman?
Well, I had some conflict here and there with Mr. Brackman because he judged me for no apparent reason, but that's just with every single teacher.
What happened after you were placed on the B team?
Well, after I was placed on the B team, I was very upset and I said some things to Mr. Brackman, and after regionals, I decided to unfortunately vandalize Mr. Brackman's car with what I thought was an expo marker.
After this incident, how did you feel?
I felt horrible. I knew how much Mr. Brackman loved that car, so whenever I found out that it was permanent marker, I felt awful. I reflected on my actions and realized what I did was wrong, so I constantly tried to make up with Mr. Brackman. But I'm not surprised that he didn't want to hear from me. It's totally understandable.
Now let's talk more about your relationship with any of your teammates. How was your relationship with them?
Well, I got along with everyone except Alex Fuentes.
Please elaborate on your relationship with Alex Fuentes.
Well, Alex, in my perspective, was just overall jealous of me. I was better at mock trial than him, and I received all the awards, and he was upset in my perspective about that. So if I were to ask him anything, he wouldn't really help me out.
Now let's move on to the day of March 6, 2020. Please tell the court what happened that day.
Well, on March 6th, I went to go pick up my best friend, Taylor, from her house. I told her about my unfortunate missing of my phone, and she suggested that we'd go to the mall and look for my phone and skip school.
What happened to your phone?
Well, I lost my phone whenever I was at the Fry Shack with Taylor and Alex Fuentes.
Earlier today, it was brought up that you sent unflattering text messages. How did you send them?
I don't know what text messages you're talking about.
Moving on, how did losing your phone make you feel?
It felt horrible. I'm 16 years old, so my life revolves around social media. I love talking to my friends, and I love making social interactions. So whenever I lose my phone, especially during a pandemic, I cannot communicate with my friends. It's horrible. It makes me feel so neglected and left out.
What brand was your missing phone?
My brand was an iPhone, Apple iPhone.
Your Honor, permission to screen share Exhibit 14 with the court.
Granted.
Mr. Becker, what are these?
I'm not sure. They look like texts.
Is there anything that stands out to you?
Well, first it says my name at the top, and second, it says that I am allegedly texting an android.
Thank you, co-counsel. You can stop screen sharing. Mr. Becker, did you kill Mr. Brackman?
No, why would I kill my beloved coach, Mr. Brackman? He was so sweet, and while we had our disagreements here and there, I loved him. He brought joy to my life, and he got me out of the house. Without mock trial, I would just be sitting in my room bored, and I wouldn't be able to do anything. I miss him dearly, and I wish that this never happened to him.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Very well, Ms. Kionis.
Yes, Your Honor. Let's begin with talking about your relationship with Mr. Brackman. It's fair to say that you and Mackenzie Brackman didn't get along very well.
Well, we had conflict here and there, but I'd say we got along pretty well.
Is it your testimony today that you and Mackenzie Brackman got along very well?
No, I just said that we just had conflict here and there, but we still acted professional with each other for the most part.
Okay, and to you, Mr. Brackman was unappreciative of your work?
He judged my work, even though my work was fine. It kind of hurt my feelings.
Is that a yes or a no, Mr. Becker?
That's a yes.
And for him criticizing you all the time, you vandalized his car for it?
Well, I thought I was vandalizing his car with an expo marker, but it turned out to be a permanent marker. And like I said, I regret it dearly, and I wish I never did it.
But you still vandalized his car?
Yes, and I really regret it.
And for doing that, he kicked you off of the mock trial team?
Unfortunately, yes, but that was completely justifiable.
Which made you angry?
I mean, it's mock trial, something that brought joy to my life. Wouldn't that make you angry too?
Let's move on. And that night after you got kicked off the mock trial team, you told your mother that you would get back at him if it was the last thing you did?
Well, I was angry in the moment. I was not thinking about what I was going to say. And honestly, it's my mom. I really didn't want her to judge me, so I said those things to make myself appear stronger.
Okay, and let's move on and talk about the events that took place around the time Mr. Brackman was murdered. You and Taylor Perkins were hanging out on March 5th, the day before he was killed?
Well, we weren't necessarily hanging out. We were looking for my phone that was stolen by Alex Cifuentes.
I'm talking about the day before he was killed.
Oh, yes, we were at the Fry Shack.
And then the next morning, you couldn't find your phone.
Yes, and that's whenever we went to the mall and looked for my phone.
And you do believe that Alex Cifuentes stole it?
I mean, he had to. Taylor didn't have my phone, so he's the only other option that could have my phone.
Okay, and you also believe that you were set up by Alex Cifuentes and Blair Rollins, correct?
I would say so, yes.
But you have no proof of that.
Well, I do have my assumptions that Alex took my phone, and I know Blair Rowland's relationship with Mr. Brackman, which was not the best, and pardon me, Alex was best friends with Blair, so it would only make sense.
But they're just assumptions, not proof.
Yes, but I'd say that they're accurate assumptions.
Okay, and on the day of March 6th, the day Brackman was killed, you decided to skip school and look for your phone?
Yes, and I was with Taylor, like I previously stated.
So you're with Taylor. So after you and Taylor parted ways, there's no one to confirm your whereabouts after that?
Well, after we parted ways, I went home because it was the end of the day.
Okay, and Mr. Becker, you've seen the videos from Mackenzie Brackman's home?
Yes.
And you do admit that the person in those videos are the same height and build as you?
Not really. I mean, I'm skinny, and that person in that video looked pretty higher weight, not to be offensive or anything.
Is it your testimony today that the person in these videos are not the same height and build as you?
Yes.
You gave a statement prior to today's trial?
Yes.
And while you were giving this statement, you were under oath?
Yes.
And after giving them this statement, you checked it for completeness and accuracy?
Yes.
And it included everything that you know that could be relevant to this case?
Possibly. I have pretty bad memory, so some things could possibly be left out. But to my knowledge, yes.
And you knew that you should have updated it if anything new occurred?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Your Honor, permission for the witness to view this witness's affidavit?
Very well, permission granted.
Co-counsel, will you please scroll down to the last page? Co-counsel, this is Taylor Perkins. Will you please scroll down to Avery Becker? Okay, Mr. Becker, let the record reflect that I will be referring to the witness's affidavit on page 40, lines 144 to 146. Please read silently as I read aloud. My lawyer showed me the ring videos and you cannot see the person's face. I get that the person in the video is my general size and build, but so are a lot of people.
That's general size. That's not exact size. I never said exact size, and I never said that they exactly looked like my build. I said they had a general similarity to my build. And stated in my testimony, I said Blair Rowlands had the same size as me, which means my assumptions from earlier could match up because that could be Blair Rowlands in those videos.
Okay, co-counsel, you may unshare this. Okay, Mr. Becker, let's move on and talk about your mock trial career. You would consider yourself a natural in mock trial?
I mean, obviously, I didn't have to rehearse and I'd still get Best Attorney Award at regionals.
You were good at coming up with things on the fly.
I mean, every lawyer should be.
You even said that you could spin a yarn that had those scoring judges like putty in your hands.
I mean, obviously, why do you think I received those awards?
Meaning you knew how to manipulate the judges in your favor.
No, I didn't know how to manipulate them. I knew how to act like an actual lawyer and how to show them that I was good at my job.
So you knew how to act.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Very well. Ms. Kionis, may this witness be excused? I'm
Brief
sorry.
redirect, Your
I'm
Honor.
sorry. Yes, please, Ms. Livingston.
Mr. Becker, did you attempt to contact Mr. Brackman after vandalizing his car?
I mean, multiple times. I felt horrible for what I did to his car, but again, I don't judge him for not wanting to hear from me.
And talking about March 6th, you were together with Taylor Perkins most of the day, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And you only parted after meeting up with others at the Fry Shack after the day?
Objection,
Yes.
Your Honor, leading.
Response, Your Honor?
Yeah.
In a redirect, you are allowed with leading questions as long as it is within the scope of the cross.
What rule are you citing in that regard?
I'm not sure.
Very well. Ms. Kionis?
Your Honor, the witness may be asked leading questions to clarify information, but in this case, opposing counsel's line of questioning are all leading.
Again, Ms. Kionis, good objection, but I'll sustain. I will overrule that objection with respect to this redirect examination. Please proceed, Ms. Livingston.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll
And
ask,
go back to the question. What was it?
I'll ask again. You were together with Taylor Perkins most of the day on March 6th, correct?
That is correct. We were looking for my phone that Alex Cifuentes stole from me.
And at the end of the day, you only parted after meeting up with others at the Fry Shack?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Very well. Now, Ms. Kionis, may this witness step down.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Livingston, may this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Please step down. Next witness.
Your Honor, the defense would like to call Taylor Perkins to the stand.
Thank you. And Ms. Perkins, would you please wave at the camera so we can identify you? Thank you. Very well. Please proceed.
Please state your full name and spell your last name for the record.
Taylor Perkins, Perkins.
Why are you here today?
Because my best friend, Avery Becker, is being wrongfully accused of murdering our mock trial coach, Mackenzie Brackman.
Is Avery Becker here today?
Yes.
Please describe Avery Becker for the court.
He has red hair and is wearing a suit.
Let the record show Taylor Perkins has correctly identified Avery Becker.
Record will so reflect.
Sorry.
Excuse
How do
me?
you know? My bad. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, please proceed. I'm sorry.
How do you know Avery Becker?
We're best friends and we went to school together and we do practically everything together.
Who else do you recognize here today?
Alex Cifuentes.
Can you please identify Alex Fuentes for the court?
Black hair, dark top, glasses, and is wearing headphones.
How do you know Alex Fuentes?
We were on the mock trial team together.
What did you and Avery do together?
Well, everything. I mean, we went to school, we were on mock trial. We always hung out.
How did you like being on mock trial?
It was fun.
What was Mr. Brackman like as a coach?
Well, personally, I think he was a mediocre coach, but like I said, we always had fun.
At practice, what did you observe?
Well, Avery was pretty unprepared when it came to mock trial, and it always seemed like steam was about to come out of Mr. Brackman's ears.
Steam was about to come out of Mr. Brackman's ears. Can you please elaborate?
Well, whenever Avery would show up late and unprepared, Mr. Brackman always got really red in the face and seemed super annoyed.
What happened to Avery on the mock trial team?
Well, Brackman demoted Avery from A team to mock trial B team, which I thought was totally unfair. So I quit the A team.
Why did you quit the A team?
Well, like I said, I thought it was super unfair that Avery got demoted, and Avery wanted to be a lawyer and I didn't. So I quit the team so Brackman would have to move Avery back up to A team to fill my spot.
There was a prank. What happened?
Well, I wasn't there, but what I heard was that Avery took a marker and he told me he thought it was an expo and wrote on Mr. Brackman's car.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. McCready. Ms. Ahmad?
Thank you, Your Honor. You graduated from Colorado High School last year, is that true?
Yes, it is.
And you were also a part of the mock trial team?
Yeah, until I quit to let Avery take my spot.
And is it true that you only joined because of Avery?
Yeah, like I said, I didn't really want to be a lawyer, but it was an excuse to hang out.
And you believe that Coach Brackman was a bad coach because of some of the decisions he made?
Yeah, sometimes it didn't always fully benefit the team in a positive way.
Okay. And you also said you found it funny how Brackman would be angry at how unprepared Avery was at practice?
Sometimes, yeah.
And is it true that Avery would often play pranks on Brackman?
Not often, no.
But Avery would still play pranks on Brackman?
He would talk about it, yeah.
Okay. And you stepped down from Team A to Team B to support Avery once he got kicked off, is that true?
I did not step down to Team B, I quit the team.
Oh, okay. And you said you didn't see what happened at practice the day that Brackman's car was vandalized?
Correct, I had already quit the team at that point.
But Avery filled you in on all the events that happened?
Yes.
You thought that Avery and Alex didn't get along very well, is that true?
Yeah, neither of us really got along with Alex.
And at the Fry Shack later that week, you said you wanted to punch Alex Cifuentes?
Yeah, Alex was being very unempathetic to the fact that Avery had been kicked off the team.
Okay. And that day, you and Avery both forgot his phone at the Fry Shack?
Yes.
Okay. And neither of you remembered until the next day?
Yeah, we didn't realize until he came to pick me up to go to school.
And once you both realized, you decided to ditch school to search for his phone?
Yeah, so we went to everywhere we were the day before.
And you didn't realize that you could use an iCloud website to track his phone despite having an Android?
Yeah, because I had an Android, we couldn't use the app and we didn't realize that we could use the website.
Okay. And while you guys were at the Fry Shack looking for Avery's phone, you saw some of the mock trial team?
Yeah, which was really weird because they were supposed to be in practice.
But they said that Brackman never showed.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. And when Avery was accused of murdering Coach Brackman, you didn't think it was him because you two were together that night?
Yeah, we were together the whole day, not just the night.
Okay. But after the Fry Shack that night, or that day, you guys split ways?
Yeah, we both went home.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor.
Very well. Ms. McCready, redirect.
Taylor, what happened at the shack?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
What happened at the Fry Shack?
Which day?
The first day after practice.
Well, we went to the Fry Shack and we ran into some of the other mock trial kids, including Alex Cifuentes. And then Avery went to the bathroom and left his phone at the table, and then we left after he came out of the bathroom.
Who was the last person you saw with Avery Becker's phone?
Alex Cifuentes.
On March 6th, 2020, where were you?
I was with Avery looking for his missing phone.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Ahmad, may this witness be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. McCready,
Yes, Your Honor.
all right, you may step down. Next witness, please.
Defense calls Blake Van Owen to the stand. Good afternoon, Professor Van Owen. Please state your full name and spell your last for the record.
Blake Van Owen, Vanowen.
And Ms. Van Owen, why are you here today?
I'm here to investigate and testify to the death of Mackenzie Brackman.
And what is your occupation?
You see, I am a professor, I'm a private investigator, and I'm a defense expert.
And what's your background as a private investigator?
I was a school resource officer and a security guard before becoming a private investigator.
All right. And your educational background, what's that like?
I have an English bachelor's degree from CU Boulder, and I also have a master's degree in criminal justice from Asper University.
Professor Van Owen, what is your experience with the Denver Police Department?
I worked with the Denver Police Officer, for the Denver Police Department for about a 9-month period before leaving.
All right, and what made you leave?
Well, you see, I chose to leave on my own. I was young, I was just, a pedestrian was resisting arrest. They ended up getting injured. Me being young, I don't know how to cooperate that sloppy way. And I learned from my mistake, and I seeked higher and better opportunities.
All right, and Ms. Van Owen, how long have you been working as a professor and private investigator?
I've been lecturing for a long time, since 2015, well into my career as a private investigator.
All right. And what do you do within your professions?
I do a bunch of stuff: crime scene reconstruction, cell tower analysis, false arrests, CSRs, you name it.
And what areas do you specialize in?
As I said, cell tower analysis, false arrests, crime scene reconstruction, etc.
All right. How many cases have you been recognized as an expert witness in?
Well over 100 at this point.
And how have you been compensated today?
Love this question. You see, I'm a professional and I'm being compensated for my time. All the attorneys are being compensated for their time. Whether I get paid to be on prosecution or defense does not bias my opinion. Although my track record shows that I've only been on defense, does not bias my opinion whatsoever.
All right, thank you, Professor. Your Honor, at this time, defense would like to enter Professor Blake Van Owen as an expert in crime scene reconstruction, cell tower analysis, and police investigation tactics.
Mr. Larkin?
Objection, Your Honor. This information is cumulative.
Any other basis?
We've already heard this information in Professor Van Owen's report.
No, Ms.
before trial
Burdick,
started.
Ms. Burdick, your response.
I am asking to qualify Professor Van Owen as an expert in these fields. not questioning her on them.
Very well. That objection is overruled. Thank you. And the witness will be qualified as an expert in those 3 fields.
Thank you, Your Honor. Professor, let's talk about your investigation into this case. What did you do first?
Well, I did what the most obvious part of every investigation. I looked into the evidence, the photos that were taken in the crime scene, but then I came across a missing file.
Could you please elaborate more on this missing file?
Well, you see, the missing file was pictures of the blood caskets when the knife was stabbed and removed from Mackenzie Brackman's back.
All right. And why did you feel the need to contribute to this investigation?
Well, I felt the need, not because I'm being paid to be on defense, but I saw the police work and the missing file and all this stuff going on, and I truly saw that that Becker was not going to get a fair say in this case.
All right. And what were you specifically able to contribute to this case?
Well, I contributed a detailed investigation looking at the evidence, cell towers, and the probability of Becker actually committing this crime.
All right. So let's talk about the cell phones involved in this case. What is your knowledge about cell phone towers?
You see, cell phone towers generally can cover large areas. Of course, in urban areas, they're like more tightly compact, but you can still get a large range out of them. But also, when cell towers connect to a network, they can connect to multiple cell towers at the same time. But they usually go to the cell tower that has the closer or better signal, you know.
All right. And about how many miles does a cell tower cover in urban areas?
I'd probably say, especially in Denver area, probably 6 to 7 miles.
All right. And you reviewed the cell tower records in this case by Detective Jordan Markowitz, yes?
Of course, yes.
All right. I'm going to refer you to those at that time. How are these cell towers relevant?
Well, they're not exactly relevant. Allow me to explain. You see, cell towers aren't like GPS. You don't know where specifically a cell phone is. You know, you could be in one place and the cell tower can connect to that phone if it has the best signal. You don't really exactly can know where the cell phone is.
All right. And was there anything else that you found concerning about their use in this case?
About the cell towers?
Yes.
All that it really shows is that Becker's cell phone was in the area. And it can't pinpoint where someone is specifically, as I elaborated.
All right. You saw some text messages when investigating this case. How are they relevant?
This is my favorite part. You see, the problem with screenshots, allow me to say it again, screenshots of text messages is that you don't have the physical thing, you don't have the physical copy, and you can easily go in and fix them to your liking.
All right. And would you be able to recognize these screenshots today?
Of course, yes.
Co-counsel, permission of screen share exhibit 14, which has been previously entered.
Very well.
Thank you, co-counsel. Is there anything that you find concerning about these screenshots, Professor Van Owen?
Yes, definitely. As Becker elaborated in his statement/testimony, he has an iPhone, and all of these the text messages are gray and green. As we've learned here today previously, if an iPhone connects to another iPhone, the sent message to that person, in this case, Soufflence's text to Avery would have been blue. Regarding that, there was good network, but I'm pretty sure there's good network. There's really good most of the time.
All right. And Professor, what messaging software is visible in this picture?
It is Apple iMessage. If you were to scroll down, you'd be able to see some of the main obvious Apple icons, like down there where it has like the music note. That's iTunes, for iPhones. And then there's also Apple Pay, which for iPhones. So yeah.
All right. And you've also, thank you, co-counsel. You've also mentioned that the defendant lost their phone, yes?
Yes.
Could you please elaborate on how this impacts the case?
Well, we still do not know the location of the cell phone. It's likely, or most likely, that Avery Becker's phone was deactivated at the time, or it pinged to a cell tower that Detective Markowitz did not check, because Detective Markowitz only opened the cell tower records for a certain window of time.
All right. And do you know the brand of the defendant's missing phone? You heard it earlier in testimony.
Oh, yes, it was an iPhone.
All right. Now, on to the prosecution's theory. How does it differ from your own?
Well, the only thing that we really agree on is that the intruder broke into Mackenzie Brackman's house. Allow me to elaborate. You see, the autopsy report conveyed that there was a downward force into the aorta, which would mean that someone with a larger build than Brackman would have to be above the victim to stab them in that particular way.
All right. And is there anything else that's important about the position of the knife?
Yes, as I reviewed during my investigation about the prosecution's theory of the knife being held in an unnatural manner with the knife being upside down, it doesn't make sense with the assailant being similar or the similar build to Brackman, because then, it's just not matching up, especially with the assumptions made in this case.
Okay. And finally, earlier today, you reviewed some Ring doorbell videos. How does this impact the case? What are your thoughts?
How anyone can be behind that mask. The Ring videos aren't really too helpful in this case.
All right. Thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Burdick. Cross-examination, Mr. Larkin.
Yes, Your Honor, but before I begin, I inquire to my time.
9 minutes and 42 seconds.
Thank you. Hello, Professor Van Owens. You claim to be a private investigator, correct?
Yes.
You're not a detective?
No, I'm not, but I am qualified in some areas that a detective would do.
But on this case, you only did a partial investigation, is that correct?
Well, I mean, the police already did half the investigation, rushed and did it anyway, so I didn't really have time to really do too much either. I mean, what would you do?
Okay, but you're being paid privately to do this case, correct?
As I said earlier, I'm a professional. All the attorneys are getting paid. If you're a professional, you get paid for your time, whether that's for anything like a favor or something. It does not bias anything, and it does not really relevant to this case.
Okay, but speaking on time, how long after the crime occurred were you hired?
I wouldn't say it wasn't too long.
But you never saw a fresh crime scene.
Well, it was already cleaned up, and all the police and the investigators rushed everything. So of course I couldn't have seen it. Like,
And your work for the case is mostly review.
well, that's all I've been given with. When you get set with a case with rushed work, yet again, you can't do too much. You can't go back and see how the body was this, or if it was 3 centimeters off or something like that.
Okay, but why not do more work on the scene as a crime scene reconstruction if you mostly just did review?
Well, I mean, I'm a private investigator, and the crime scene was already cleaned up. Like, I don't understand.
As a former police officer and crime scene reconstructionist, wouldn't you agree that firsthand knowledge, or at least close to firsthand knowledge, is crucial in investigation?
Oh, yes, 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 yes. It is very important. But the firsthand knowledge does disintegrate with value if it is rushed or just brushed up upon.
And you were in court to hear Ms. Kuzak and Detective Markowitz testify today, is that correct?
Yes.
In your testimony, you bring up Occam's razor, stating you explain common things commonly, is that correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat your question?
Of course. In your testimony, you bring up the theory of Occam's razor, stating that you explain common things commonly, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So hearing Ms. Kuzak and Detective Markowitz claiming that Avery Becker is the most likely intruder, why not use Occam's razor and define that?
You see, most likely does not mean definitely. And especially with their theory, we already knew that prosecution had another suspect in this case, but they unfortunately got away and were not interviewed.
And in your testimony prior to court today, you claim that cell tower data just isn't that accurate.
I mean, it's really not. Cell tower data, GPS, which one would be more accurate? It's clearly going to be, like, you can't directly pinpoint something, as I said earlier.
But also in your testimony prior to court, you use cell tower data to base location of Avery Becker and Taylor Perkins at the Fry Shack, or at least near it. Is that correct?
Well, yeah, we have evidence and a witness that said that they were at the Fry Shack. I mean, I used cell tower data because there was nothing for me to use from the police investigation.
So a best friend and, by your words, not very accurate information is the best alibi for Taylor or for Avery Becker?
I wouldn't say it's an alibi. I mean, this entire thing is just all she said, he said, and all this. So I wouldn't call it an alibi. I'd call it from memory.
Okay, so along with not doing a full investigation, what you claim in your testimony, and being paid privately, how can the defense be sure that the work that you did on this case was as full and accurate as possible?
I could say the same thing about the prosecution. I mean, how can we know that they did full extensive stuff on their end and not on my end? Like, all fingers are all fingers are being pointed at the defense, always in every case, but they're not being treated fairly to get a say in each case. Like, how do we know that, I don't know, Detective Markowitz didn't get all the cell tower records from around the area, or from the day before, or from that exact day, or after? You know what I'm talking about? Like, it just, you don't know. You just don't know on both sides. I wouldn't just pinpoint it on defense all the time.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. No further questions.
Thank you. Ms. Burdick, any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Professor Van Owen, have you ever been paid by the prosecution to testify for them?
No, but I guess that says something about the prosecution, you know. I've never been paid by the prosecution.
And the firsthand evidence, why were you not able to see it firsthand?
Well, considering the date that I was hired and the I guess the information that was collected, the time that I would get fresh information, this case would have been already done and Becker would have been falsely accused of doing something that he didn't do.
And finally, back to those cell towers. Remind me again how using them to locate someone works.
Well, you see, it's like a duck in a pond. You see, the pond is the cell tower. It has a great range. It has all this. It has depth. It has height. And the duck in the duck pond is basically, the cell phone. So it's kind of, you don't know exactly where the duck is in the duck pond, but like around where the duck is in the duck pond. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. And finally, you heard earlier today that the fry shack is in the area of one of the cell towers used, yes?
Oh, yes, I did.
And did this contribute to you placing Avery to be most likely in that area?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much, Professor. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Larkin, may this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Burdick,
Yes, Your Honor.
any further evidence by the defense?
No, Your Honor, the defense rests.
Very well. So we're ready to proceed to closing argument. Let me first inquire of the scoring panel, would taking a minute or two help in terms of keeping up on the scoring and the like? And let me ask that sort of in the negative. Is there anybody who would want a couple minutes to shore up their ballots thus far? Hearing no one, I guess we're ready to proceed to closing argument. Prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor, and I ask that any remaining time be used for rebuttal.
Granted.
Your Honor, opposing counsel, and members of the jury, I will get back at him if it is the last thing I do. Those are the words from none other the defendant, Avery Becker, just before Mackenzie Brackman was brutally murdered. Today, the prosecution has the burden of proof to prove that Avery Becker committed burglary in the second degree and felony murder in the first. Now, what that means is that while Avery Becker was committing burglary in the second degree, Mackenzie Brackman fatally died as a result of it. And we, the prosecution, have brought you 3 very credible witnesses to prove that. First, we brought you crime scene reconstructionist Kyle Kuzak, a certified crime scene reconstructionist, who gave you the layout of all the information and what they believed happened. And second, you heard from Alex Cifuentes, who told you that Avery Becker and Mr. Brackman did not get along at all. Mr. Brackman was always mad at Avery for their lack of preparation. And they also brought you screenshots, certified screenshots, of Avery Becker stating a plan that she had to trash Mackenzie Brackman's home, which is why we are here today. And third, you heard from Detective Jordan Markowitz, who told you why the evidence led her to suspect it was Avery Becker that committed this crime. And they also said that even though you could not see the face behind the person in the Ring doorbell videos, just because there's no face doesn't mean that there's no other evidence pointing to Avery Becker. And that yes, the screenshots, they may be green messages, but there are possibilities that they could not just be blue. Now, the defense has brought you 3 witnesses as well to try to refute these statements. First, you heard from Avery Becker himself, who says he got along with Mr. Brackman, but then you heard from Taylor Perkins stating that they didn't, that they were always fighting, that they didn't like Mr. Brackman. Second, you heard also from Taylor Perkins, who stated that they weren't together the entire day, that they did part afterwards, so there's no one to testify here as to where Avery Becker was after they parted ways. And third, you heard from Blake Van Owen, a professor, not a detective, and not a certified crime scene reconstructionist, who, number one, told you that they think cell tower data is not accurate, but then they used it to track the fry shack. And they also said that it's not an alibi, it's just memory. So there's no alibi, according to Blake Van Owen. The defense has failed to show that Avery Becker is innocent. The only goose chase in this case is on the part of the defense. They don't see the mountains of evidence against Avery Becker. They only see that maybe Blair Rollins has a motive, but that's just conspiracy theories and speculation. They have no proof, but we, the prosecution, have. At the end of today's trial, you, the jury, will come back with a verdict. And we, the prosecution, are very, very confident that it will be guilty, because Avery Becker got back at Mackenzie Brackman if it was the last thing she did. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kionis. Ms. Livingston.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, co-counsel, and opposing counsel. Today we are here for one reason and one reason only: a wild goose chase with one Avery Becker. My name is Daisy, and my co-counsel and I are here to defend Avery Becker to prove to you all that he was wrongfully accused. Avery Becker was an innocent high school student and star of the mock trial team. He loves being on the team, and it brings him joy to his everyday life. He's being accused of murder of his mock trial coach. His coach, someone who showed him the ways of mock trial and led him to victory. Would you ever murder someone who brought you immense joy to your life? Avery Becker has made some mistakes, but who doesn't? After being moved down to B team and after regionals, he pulled a silly prank on Mr. Brackman's car, writing Worst Attorney Award on Mr. Brackman's car in what he thought was dry erase marker, and instead grabbed a Sharpie marker on accident. A simple mistake. Later, he felt extremely guilty, pleading to make it up to Brackman and even offering to get a job to pay for it to get it fixed, because he regretted what he did and he reflected on his actions. On March 6, 2020, Mackenzie Brackman was tragically murdered inside his own home. While this happened, Avery Becker was on the search for his missing phone. He had lost his phone earlier the day before. Someone stole his phone, that someone being Alex Fuentes, as he was the last person to be with it. Taylor Perkins and Avery Becker went on a search for this missing phone and never found it that day, ending at the fry shack with the rest of the people. Mr. Becker is being wrongfully accused for two things today. The first being first-degree murder. First-degree murder is defined as an unlawful killing that is both willful and premeditated, meaning that it was committed after planning and lying in wait for the victim. We know that Avery Becker was never on the scene of the crime or even close to the scene of the crime. Avery Becker would never intend to murder someone, especially his beloved mock trial coach, as he testified today. He is also being accused for second-degree burglary. This is the intent to commit a crime against a person or property. How can you commit a crime against a property that you're not even on? In the house, nothing was destroyed or taken except for one plate. In the home, which Avery Becker wasn't even in the vicinity in. With proven today, the text messages were sent from an Android, with color shown in Exhibit 14. Avery Becker has an iPhone, not Android, proving that this couldn't have been him sending those messages, making no proof that he even intended to commit a crime. Today, the prosecution brought three witnesses to you. The first witness they brought was Kyle Cusack, who only knows the build of Avery Becker and the suspect in the ring videos. Nothing else, no DNA proof. And also shows flaws in her reconstruction. No real proof that Avery Becker was behind the mask or the suit. Next, they brought Alex Fuentes to the stand. Alex claims that she was friends with the defendant Avery Becker. Alex did give screenshots of a conversation between Mr. Becker and herself. We did prove with the color of those text messages they must have not been sent from Avery's phone, being as the iPhone as the messages were green, not blue. Mr. Fuentes also failed to show with the actual phone. She got rid of the phone once she could. The last witness they brought was Detective Jordan Markowitz. Going back to the conversation on Apple messaging, they claim that they're certified in cell phone recovery, but never confirmed the authenticity of the text messages because she never received the phone from Ms. Cifuentes, only making an assumption that they were innocent and truthful, so only accepting the text messages. They also claim the only thing they know about the figure in the video was the similar build and that there was no real proof. After the prosecution presented their witnesses, the defense brought their own. First, we brought Avery Becker to the stand, the defendant. He testified that he did not kill his mock trial coach, and instead his phone was stolen at the scene of the crime. Next, we brought Taylor Perkins, testified to the character of Avery Becker and brought the alibi of Avery Becker, that Avery was kicked off the team and helped find the phone on March 6th. Then we brought Blake Van Owen, who testified to the fact, and they determined the probability of the messages were authentic was low. And they only showed that the cell tower data was shown area and testified to the missing phone. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the burden of the proof was on the prosecution to build, as Avery Becker himself testifies not being anywhere close to the scene of the crime. He was brought on a wild goose chase with the prosecution, and we as the defense asked the prosecution that they did not meet their burden of proof in court today, ruling that Avery Becker is
Your Honor,
innocent.
time has been called.
Thank you. Ms. Kionis, any rebuttal?
Yes, Your Honor, I would like to inquire to my timekeeper how much time I have left.
I have 1 minute and 13 seconds.
I have 1 minute and 11 seconds.
Please proceed.
Members of the jury, as opposing counsel said earlier, this is a wild goose chase. But Avery Becker is not at the end of it. The only goose chase in this case is on the part of the defense. They don't see the evidence against him. Now, opposing counsel said that felony murder is premeditated. Felony murder is not premeditated. As I stated earlier, while Avery Becker was committing second-degree burglary, Mackenzie Brackman died in the process. It is not premeditated murder. It is a result of a felony being committed. Now, the prosecution is confident that you, the jury, will come back with a verdict of guilty. But please look at the evidence, the actual proof, not the conspiracy theories and not the speculation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kionis. Well, this concludes the trial of this matter. Tradition would dictate that we all stand up and clap, but we're somewhat constrained under the current realities. But I think everybody, great work. I'd like to spend a little bit of time giving some short comments by me and the scoring panelists. I will start while the scoring panelists are finishing up with their work. And
Mr. Bailey, this is Jason Downey, the coordinator. I just want to remind all the scoring panelists, do not leave this meeting until you have clicked submit on your score sheets, and that I receive them and I will report back to you that you can leave the meeting.
thank you, Mr. Downey. My comments are going to be directed generally to both teams and not with respect to any particular side or participant, witness, or attorney. I think the thing I was most impressed with is the great preparation and familiarity with the case that both teams demonstrated. You were familiar with the facts and the nuances from those facts, and that's really well done. I think both teams would benefit from taking a look at some of the things that are on the table that perhaps could have been amplified a little bit more. Voir dire of the experts is something that I think both teams ought to consider. We had 3 experts in this case, and the voir dire process does 2 things. Number one, I think it shows an aspect of the performance that scoring panelists like to see. The other thing it can be used for is to narrow areas of expertise. So very rarely does voir dire result in the disqualification of a witness, but going through that process and sort of preemptively letting the jury know that the expert might not be as big an expert as the proponent lawyer is suggesting could be helpful, I think, in improving the performance. Also, there, I think, is embedded in this case a lot of opportunity to challenge the foundation of some of the witnesses' testimony, the foundation of some of the exhibits, and neither side really raised much in the way of foundation. I'd encourage you to really dig in there and take a look at what you might be leaving on the table as far as demonstrating to the scoring panel that you're aware of the foundational aspects, both with respect to testimony and exhibits. And then the final thing is reference to instructions. It's a matter of style to some extent, but those instructions can really provide a great skeleton for the jury to consider in terms of what the law is, burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, credibility of the witnesses, the elements of the crime and the various crimes in this case, the presumption of innocence, the equation of circumstantial and direct evidence. All of those things could be referenced to the jury in a way to make it such that the closing arguments refer to the law itself. I think you did a great job of dealing with the facts. So just general comments in that regard. Mr. Kinney, are you prepared to make comments? And let's keep it at around 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Hello, am I audible?
You got it.
Oh, yes, okay. I enjoyed this, especially this format, which I found very interesting. I thought the students were very well prepared, and it is a win-win situation, really. No one loses this sort of thing because you learn to think logically on your feet and to present yourself on your feet. I represent the Rotary Club of Colorado Springs. We have done this. We've sponsored this event for many, many years, and I suspect that we will go on doing that. So my congratulations to everyone involved today. Very interesting, very tightly argued. I scored it a lot closer than I thought I did. Thank you for everyone.
Thanks, Mr. Kinney. Dr. Thomas.
Yeah, I would echo the comments made. I would just share again, as Jack, I also represent the Rotary, but also I lead one of the largest school systems here as well. And it's so impressive from an education standpoint to see our young people be able to have, strong critical thinking and analysis skills, your ability to logically walk through a variety of information and data points, and to convey a position. All of those skills are something that every employer, whether you go into law or not, will require of you. And it's those skills that will differentiate you from being a good candidate to being the best candidate for whatever you choose to do in your life. So great work. You also demonstrated great teamwork. And that's another thing that I want to just echo. My point of critical feedback, I'm not an attorney, Law and Order is about as close as I get to watching it. But I will say that the cross-examinations on both sides, I think could be a little stronger and push a little harder and go a little deeper to really call into question. I think going back to kind of what we were just shared earlier, the foundational arguments, pick them apart a little bit more, because I think you could have dug a little deeper there. But outside of that piece of critical feedback, I thought you all did a fantastic job.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas. Ms. Vo?
Good morning. I am a hearing officer with the Department of Revenue, so I conduct hundreds and hundreds of hearings every year, and I see hundreds of attorneys every year. And I will say that any of you are welcome in my hearings at any time, because some of you are just as good as, if not better than, some of the attorneys I see on a daily basis. I would certainly agree with all the comments that have been made so far about the amount of preparation and the knowledge of the case. Having formerly coached mock trial, I know the amount of time that you put into this, and it is very clear that you did put a lot of time into this, and it does show. So certainly congratulations for that. I would also say, particularly this year, I know it's been a very difficult year on everyone, so I am very impressed with your flexibility in being able to adapt to using Zoom, and you all did an outstanding job with that. I'm only going to make one quick comment because it's a fairly easy fix, and I see this from attorneys, and I used to do this as well. And that is using a word before you start your sentences, before you start your questions. So today I saw, and I'm going to ask a question, and I'm asking another question. All right, okay, I'm going to go to my next question. Okay, my next question. It tends to be a little bit distracting, and it's very easy to fix for your next rounds. Similarly, I think that you really shouldn't comment if you're doing a cross-examination or a direct examination on a witness's testimony. I heard a couple of times where a witness testifies to something and the attorney says, thank you, or all right, or okay, just go ahead and go to your next question. I think that again, it's a distraction and it's an easy change to make. But overall, I think everyone did an amazing job, especially considering the circumstances. And I was honored to judge today.
Thank you, Ms. Vo. And a parting comment really to everybody in this room. I don't know whether the bandwidth can handle it, so I'm going to save it for the end in terms of asking everybody to pop their cameras on. But as Dr. Thomas says, this mock trial program is so incredibly helpful to the participants, not only now, but in their future. And when the zombie apocalypse known as COVID happened, I really despaired that the flame would go out with this program. So not only from the standpoint of your technical expertise in terms of manipulating and handling all the computer stuff, but the fact that you made this adaptation, you kept the flame alive with this program, and it's going to bounce back stronger and harder because you hung in there this year. We're going to have many years of increasing involvement in this program. So I just really want to compliment everybody, the scoring panelists and the participants, the coaches and the parents. So let's try and see if we can all flip our cameras open. But before we do that, have the scoring panelists all submitted their ballots?
Your Honor, this is Jason Downey, and I have ballots from everybody but you, and I know where you are, so I'm assuming
Right.
that will be okay.
Well, yeah, I'm an old dog, as I said at the beginning, and I wrote mine down, but I just didn't have the technical expertise to do the computer thing.
So I will let you go and finish up, and I have everybody's score sheet, and everybody can leave the meeting when you're done.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Well, it looks like everybody's up and going. So let's all give ourselves a hand.
And on behalf of both teams, we would like to thank all of you for being here. It means so much to us that you still made the effort to make this happen, especially during these unprecedented times. So we really appreciate you guys.
Thank you, folks. This trial is adjourned. All rise.
Thank you so much for all of your guys' time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good luck next round, everybody.
Yes, good luck, everybody, and hopefully you all stay safe from COVID-19. So,
Absolutely.
Bye-bye.